Episode 16. We have Kevon on the show. Welcome, man. How are you doing?
Hey, Justin, thank you so much for having me here. It has been a while since I do a podcast interview, so it's nice to get back and have a deep chat with someone else. So thanks for having me here.
Of course, man. It's a pleasure. And it's really cool, how when we post stuff online, it's just how crazy to see how people meet each other. And, I came across your work, I think from one of Paul Miller's tweets, I think about his book, The Pathless Hat. Huge shout out, huge fan. And, I checked out your work. It's like, wow, this guy is on fire, building in public and having, your own online school. And it's really cool to also meet someone who's also a Hong Konger, from a Hong Kong background. And I
That's
think
true.
it'd be really cool to start off, with maybe your childhood backstory. And I think you studied a bit in Americas and college in Canada. So could you kind of rewind all the way back to when you were a bit younger and just tell me about your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely not that entrepreneurial kid when I was in like primary school or high school. I keep hearing stories about how people resell stationery when they were young, so they became entrepreneurs. I had none of that. So I was just this really serious student, focusing all on the schoolwork. But the thing is, you probably know, like the education in Hong Kong is quite stressful. Like they rank you every quarter. So I see my ranking dropping all the time. So when I was 15, my parents want me, and I also wanted to go to America for education.
Mm.
So that really freed me up to be like, oh, now this is a way to enjoy learning.
Yeah.
And my grades were like, I don't know, like 180 degrees turn. So I was really enjoying the classes. I was doing all the work, and I started getting all the A's, the
Mhm.
typical Asian.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was kind of my background and why I went to the U.S. for study. And I spent 7 years there, high school and then college, all always around Boston. And then I moved back home to Hong Kong ever since. So it has been more than a decade now.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, I was born in the US and I've lived in the US for my entire life. And I haven't lived in Asia. So I'm curious to hear about, your experiences living in Asia versus in America. Because I imagine, I visited, Hong Kong and other parts of Asia multiple times, but it's very, very different from the US. So could you I want to hear your perspective on what your views on America versus Asia are.
I guess I guess being Chinese, being Asian, we have a lot of traditions. So the first thing that comes off my mind is like we have a lot of family routines. Like for example, yesterday we had a dinner with the extended family on my wife's side to celebrate Mid Autumn Festival.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of this type of things, and we have a lot of things to celebrate here.
That's true.
So and then we talked about education. So with everything adds up, it sort of becomes a very busy life where you have many things to take care of and you feel like you don't have enough time. But I haven't lived in America other than just studying there, so I cannot
Mm.
really compare directly what it's like. But from my impression, it's going to be a bit more laid back, not that much that you have to cater to. So maybe on the weekend, you're just like going to the park, you're meeting with a few friends or like a neighbor family. I think that's the kind of life that I'm imagining in the state if you're working there. But I might be wrong. So anyway, it's just really busy over here.
Yeah. And you went to Babson for college, is that correct?
I went to Babson, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
Babson College.
yeah. Could you tell me a bit about your college experience and I guess you studied business there, so could you kind of tell me how that went for you?
Yeah, so I went to a boarding school first,
Mm.
around Boston, so in Massachusetts. So when I was applying to college, I applied to so many different universities in the
Yeah.
US, all across the country. And Babson really stood out to me because it was very small. It was like
Mm.
400 people per year, so like
Oh wow.
1,600
Yeah.
for the entire college.
Wow.
So obviously it's small, but very focused for business and entrepreneurship. So
Yeah.
I just maybe we'll get to that point, but growing up, I've always been this cozy person. I don't, I like to get close to people. So the small size really, really
Mhm.
is attractive to me. Um, at that point, I knew nothing about business. Honestly, my dad, before he passed away, he was a businessman. So growing up, I know that, hey, you have to do business. This is the only way to make a good living. And then after my dad passed away when I was 10, my mom turned from a housewife into a businesswoman as well. So again, that influenced me to be like, okay, this is the only thing that I want to do in life. I have no idea what it is, but let's do business. So I just like put my foot into that door. And because of the school environment, but overall the experience has been really great. Like as I said, I wasn't that entrepreneurial back then, but looking at all these classmates, like freshman year, sophomore year, they were starting businesses and they were saying like they make like 1 million revenue each year,
Yeah.
top of the class. And you're just like, what am I doing here? I'm just like reading the textbook all the time.
Yeah.
So I think I gained that spirit, that influence when I am in that environment. And then so after graduated, I want to put my bet into, entrepreneurship.
Mhm. And you mentioned you also got in a bit into tech and coding as well. So could you kind of share about your experience that and maybe up to how you started your first company, which was, Toast, your startup.
Toasty.
Yeah, Toasty. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. So a little linkage with what I just said.
Yeah.
Um, you have to choose a major when you were at Babson. So there were like, I don't know, 15, 20 concentrations in business that you can choose. So my logic back then was if you want to be an entrepreneur, you don't need to say you major in entrepreneurship, right? No one cares about that.
Yeah.
So I decided, okay, maybe I can have a plan B. Let's major in finance. So if anything, I could still get a job in finance. So I did that, study a bunch of like quants and finance. And then senior year, I was part of the school endowment fund, the managing team. So it's
Mhm.
called Babson College Fund. So we were managing real money. And that was the moment I realized I don't want to be the person who just recommend people, hey, you should buy this stock. Hey, you should sell this stock. Hey, you should hold this stock.
Mhm.
I feel like I could make up stories to sway that recommendation any
Mhm.
direction I want. So it's a lot of making up stories. So I didn't want to do that. So I told myself, okay, I'm not going to go into finance after I graduated. And my passion has always been in the internet and technology and coding because back when I was still in Hong Kong, I would be making websites as a
Gotcha.
13,
Yeah.
14 years old and serving a lot of people on the internet. Like I would make websites and forums and watch all these people enjoying what I've created. So I thought, that is my true passion. Why don't I pursue that instead? So I decided to go to, I don't know if it's still popular, but like coding bootcamp for like three
Oh,
months.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I learned all about coding and then got a job in Singapore. So I relocated to Singapore. I was taking the bootcamp in New York and then I was like flying to Singapore and started my new life. And then,
Mhm.
yeah, I don't want to keep dragging out the story, but eventually I was in kids coding education, helping a founder run the school, and then eventually running a SaaS company, and then now doing my own like online education business. Yeah.
Yeah, so it seems like you had a lot of experience, working different types of jobs and different types of work. And I guess, when you're starting your own business versus, working for someone else's company, I imagine there's like a very different set of skills that you might have to learn. So could you kind of share what's the difference between, those two domains might be like?
Hmm. I think working for someone is relatively easy in that perspective because you have a role and the
Yeah.
scope is a sort of well defined or well reduced. So you just need to kind of figure out how to do a good job in that scope. But the hard part about entrepreneurship is that you have no idea what to focus on. I think prioritization is the hard part. Like right now, for me, I can write emails to sell. I can create more free articles. I can create a free course. I can create a new cohort. So many things to decide, but what do you want to spend your time on? What do you want to hire people to do that for you? That's really the hardest part. So it takes time to learn. I'm still learning. So that's number one. Number two is, I mean, if you're working for someone, right now we call this like a rolling recession, right? So other than being afraid of being laid off, I mean, the fear is, it's not the same if you're owning a company and then you see the sales are affected, right? So as an entrepreneur, as an owner, learning how to swim in tough waters is really hard because I really don't think any company will be like doing well all the time. There must be years or time where you're suffering, but like, how do you get over that tough times is really hard and something any entrepreneur has to go through. So, yeah.
Yeah, you make some good points. Yeah, I feel like, when you're running your own company, it's like you have so many micro decisions that you could go down into, and you just really have to try to test and experiment which one works. And there's a lot of failing, but maybe some of the things might stick. And I guess we can kind of go
Yeah.
back to, finding out ideas on what businesses to start, because I imagine, Toasty, and then now, you have Small School. It all started with the seed of an idea. So could you kind of tell me like how those ideas came about in your mind? Like, what was like the story behind before everything started with your companies?
I think the best example I could give is my creator journey. So it started at the end of 2020. That was the first year of pandemic, and then my first daughter was about to get here. So I had this career break, doing nothing, and I was like, oh, why don't I just welcome my first daughter doing nothing so then I can like really take care of them. And then them as in the daughter and my wife and everyone else. And just, take it easy. But of course, I don't like to just sit here and do nothing. So I started reading online, and I think the thing about finding a new idea is, first you need to find something that connects really strongly with your heart. So I remember it was like maybe 8 weeks in, I was like just reading online, and I knew I had to start writing. It doesn't matter what I was writing, but get that habit going. So I was writing about like my past failures in startups and things about like customer interviews, customer research. I was just letting my creativity flow. And then I saw this topic like building in public. I remember I was being a little more analytical because in the past I was very naive and I saw something and I hop into it. And then after a few weeks, I just quit. This time I was analytical in a way that I saw building in public gaining popularity on Twitter. Back then it was still Twitter.
Yeah.
But then I did a Google search and I only found 4 short articles talking about it. So I was like, there must be people who want to learn more, who want to really find ways to build in public, but they have no idea how to. So maybe I could be that person. So that was like a spark. I think, okay, it's like a market research kind of signal.
Yeah.
But then the second thing, as I said, it has to connect with your heart is, and then I asked myself, like, is this something that I can talk about for like at least a decade? And the answer is yes, because, honesty, transparency, being helpful, these are all the things that I really care about as a person. So sure. So then I couldn't say this is a really validated idea, right? It's just a hypothesis.
Right.
So I decided to spend some time and take it slow and write out the free building public guide. So the way I take it slow is usually people can write like 10,000 words in a few days or maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I took 2 months because I want to just like slowly involve the people and ask them, hey, what is helpful for you? What should I put in this guide? Can I learn about like what's your goal? Why do you want to build in public? So I asked a lot of people, I involved them, and I put it in this guide. So when the guide was successful as in like I remember 2,100 people read it in the first 3 days. Then the idea is a little bit more validated, and
Yeah.
then I can go forward with it. So I guess to answer your question, it's about observing what people are asking for around you, and then just designing a mini experiment to test it out before like pouring all your savings and time into it.
Yeah. No, no, I love that principle of, of validating your idea and, really interacting with a community to hear that feedback. Because I think a few podcast episodes ago, one of the guests was saying how there's like so many problems, potential problems out there on the internet, and you have to kind of find that solution fit to that problem. And I feel like you've done a really good job at, validating the idea, getting that, feedback, and it's like, okay, this is good, and now I can kind of scale it a little bit further. So I think you're a really good example of, of
Thank
of
you.
that.
Yeah, it's always baby steps, small steps. Don't overthink it because that's going to limit what you're going to do right now.
So how did the next stage go? Like after you validated the idea, like how did you take that to an actual product, an actual cohorts? Like, what was like kind of the steps to take to get to the
Oh,
next
wow.
level?
That was a long process, to be honest.
Mm,
So, so I made a very strategic move for my first project, the free building public guide. I think a lot of people, when they're learning on the internet about how this works, they would be like, oh, I need to capture their emails. So maybe let me put it behind like an opt-in form. If you want to read my free guide, put in your email.
mhm,
But I was thinking, I was a nobody. Nobody knew me. I had no friends in the space. I had no followers. I think that would limit my growth. So what I end up doing was I just put out the guide as web pages. It's just you can access the link, you can read all the 10 chapters on the website. I wasn't even thinking about SEO. I was just thinking how easy it would be for people to copy the link, send it to a friend, and then everyone can enjoy.
mm,
And I think my gamble on that worked out really well because it spread. I shouldn't use the word fire because it's not like crazy, crazy, but but it got something, right?
yeah.
So but the thing about that thing is I didn't capture any emails. So I have no idea who read it. I had no idea who enjoyed it. So the natural next step is, hey, now I need to create something that can keep my communication going with these people. So I created a free email course. I was really obsessed with Twitter back then because it was where I built my community. So I created this free email course called Making Twitter Friends. And it has a nice angle. Everyone was talking about followers, but I was talking about friends. So again, it got me like up to this point, like almost 4,000 subscribers, all organic. I don't need to do anything. So that move was to, start building my email list.
Yeah.
But I have to say, the road to find monetization, to find my first dollar was tough because I had an audience who are interested in a topic, building in public.
Yeah.
But then how did I figure out what they are willing to pay for, right? So I started with a paid community, $5 a month, really nothing.
Mhm.
And I end up feeling that people didn't even care about that $5, but I had this huge burden to show up to serve them every single month. That was not working well. So I decided to shut it down because a paid community where people just meet each other for topic didn't really make sense. And then I started, doing a course. Maybe I can break it down and teach people how to actually show up and share their story about building a product. I should try that. So I actually asked my community members, hey, I'm shutting down, but I'm starting this cohort to teach you something in 4 weeks. I had nothing planned out, no curriculum. Are you guys in? Do you want to do it? And like 22 of them said yes. So that was my kind of first step into teaching online. And the rest is history, right? I've taught like 12 cohorts. I've sold many, many courses and books after that. But as you can see, again, it takes small steps to figure out something that works for me, but also works for the audience.
I imagine like when you're kind of experimenting with these steps, you didn't really know what was up ahead, you know. It almost like, you know, you just like, I don't know, shining the light to wherever you feel it feels
Yeah,
right,
it's
and it
just
just yeah.
it's really like holding a torch in a cave. No idea what's up front, but I think that's the reality. Like every entrepreneur would tell you the same image. It's about just making enough sales in that moment, so then you can keep going and keep figuring things out.
Mhm. And you also mentioned that, you know, with your course making Twitter friends, that Twitter was such a great way to, you know, get that quick instant feedback loop between you and, you know, your audience. And what are like some, I guess, mistakes that you see people make when they build their Twitters? And do you still see Twitter or X to be like a really good place to still build a community nowadays?
I think the biggest mistake would be we often start off with looking at people with huge following, right? Maybe 10,000 followers, 100,000 followers. And then we start learning, oh, they're writing in this style. This must be the secret sauce to get there. That's wrong because
Mm.
when they first started out, they write in a different style. And that's what got them growth. And because they're big now, they can write in a very different style, which is a bit more authoritative, a bit more experty. So a lot of people actually get that wrong misconception. So they copy the wrong things. So what I was teaching them is that forget about all this. Like imagine you are just a newbie coming to a new space. How can you behave to be someone who wants to hang out with you, right? Simple as that. So the things are like just be interested in what people do, you know, talk about your experiences, your stories, instead of teaching people, hey, you should do this, you should do that,
Mm.
something like that. So yeah, end up helping a lot of people figure this out. About your question, whether Twitter/X is still the
Yeah.
place to be, it has changed a lot.
Yeah, I've seen,
So
yeah.
I have a book about Twitter, but honestly, in retrospect, right, writing a book about social media, I would not recommend anyone do that. It's because my feelings about this platform change as well. So it's not a book that can last for like two decades. So do I regret writing that book? Yes and no. Like no, as in it's a good experience to self-publish a book, but yes, because it's a wrong strategic move to pick that topic to write a book on, which took me like 10 months. Um, but yeah, community is not about social media. It's about finding where your people are. So people move around all the time, and
Yeah,
on the
yeah, that's
internet
true.
it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
So you just need to be alert, like um, where your people are. And sometimes I don't know why, but we keep by default go to social media platforms. And I've been telling my friends lately, like, maybe we shouldn't think about social media platforms. Maybe we should just think about communities. Like maybe a certain business has your community, right? Then if you're part of that business, maybe their course, their community, you have direct access to all these people. Maybe it is yeah, let's leave it like that because I'm most familiar with courses and communities. So that is a direct way to tap into those people.
Yeah, I love that perspective. And you know, from most of what you do or your communities, it's a lot of it's in the online education space, which is you know, a really big industry. And could you kind of tell me like how you kind of got into that? Was it kind of because of a natural byproduct of being creator? And what do you kind of see this industry kind of heading towards in the near future?
How did I get into this? I mean, I was writing a lot and then I was building my first guide. So I guess in a way, I didn't know about this industry too much, to be
Oh,
honest.
uh-huh.
The first thing I did was I just want to share and I just want to create something useful. Oh,
Mm.
but actually, the root cause of all this is because I wanted to build something under my name. So this is kind of funny because
Yeah.
I was helping a founder run a kids coding school. So I had a big title like COO and co-founder. So I didn't start as a co-founder, but I eventually get promoted to be a co-founder. That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
And then I was like a CEO and founder, working with a team of investors to build a SaaS product. So from the outside, I seemed like a person doing quite well, right, with all these big titles. But deep down, I felt like a nobody because there's nothing people can Google Kevon Cheung and be like, well, this guy is good at this thing and I want to learn from him. Nothing like that. So the deep reason of why I started this is a bit selfish. I just want to build something under my name.
Yeah.
And then following the breadcrumbs, then that's what got me into the creator economy. But the education side of things, I think, well, I never imagined myself being in education. Never. Like, almost like banking. I never imagined myself in banking and education. But it was that opportunity to join the kids coding school, right timing, right things that I want to do, that got me to see like, wow, learning is actually really fun. Like you see the kids, like they're so excited to learn things, and then how we break down how to code a new project for them. I think that planted a seed in my mind. So when I was sharing online, and then trying the community and it failed, and then tried a course, and I just felt that, hey, this is really the right thing for me. Like I really enjoy crafting learning experience. I really enjoy talking to people, teaching them, and then helping them. So I think that was how I got in and stay. And then your other question is like, where is this going? So I cannot go too far, but at this moment, 2024, things have changed quite a bit. I think in the last few years, if you are just creating any sort of digital products, like you can create a mini course and you have trust from your audience, you are able to sell. But things are tougher nowadays. And one of the things is that knowledge is everywhere. If you are just creating a mini course to teach a topic, chances are people can learn on YouTube for free, or they can get someone's freebie and learn for free as well. So you have no edge building that knowledge product. But what I'm seeing people do, which I'm also starting to do more, is cohort in a way is still quite a pleasant experience. In a way, you focus on accountability, you focus on implementation. So if you have like a course to teach people how to make a lead magnet, the things is most people consume and they don't even build it. So now you have a cohort and you tell them, we're not learning here, we're building here. You'll get something done in 4 weeks. That's a very different pitch and outcome for most people. So I definitely see this happening right now. It's not just content anymore. It's a lot more than that, like homework, assignments, and live course to exchange.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting observation because I feel like, the pandemic was such a special time when people began actually being online. And maybe during that time, knowledge courses were such a big thing. And, as the world changes and perhaps it might get a bit more saturated, it's like now we kind of have to pivot and see, going back to being an entrepreneur, you have to kind of be receptive to these, trends.
Oh, yeah.
And just pivot all the time to see where the next, big thing might be. And I guess,
totally.
Going on the topic of advice, for like any college students or anyone beginning like their career who wants to, maybe build something on their own name or actually like make a lasting impact with the work that they do, is there anything like piece of advice you'd recommend?
So being that kid in university where I just study, stay in the library, do a good job in class, my regret was that I didn't experiment with a lot of things. I was pretty clueless. I didn't do any fun projects. I didn't be bold enough to say yes to different experiences, like meeting new friends from all kinds of countries. Like Babson, I think, is one of the most diverse school in the whole world. Like the international population is like so high. So you can easily find people from like 60, 50, 60 countries. So like I should really go out there and just meet, like what you're doing right now, like meet
Yeah.
people, soak in what they know, and just create fun projects with them. I think study less and create more is the way to go. I think you're doing that right now.
Yeah, I like that, project oriented approach. It's like, when you do cool projects, it's like sometimes the skills that come along from doing these projects, you never know. Like, for example, those podcast backstories. Like, I used to be like one of the shyest kids in my class, and now it's like it's crazy to believe that, I'm actually talking and actually hosting conversations. So, yeah, I think it's cool to, you don't know what you can learn from it. So just try things.
Yeah, this is pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm a super introvert. Maybe you're
Yeah, same
hinting that
here.
you're
Same
a
here.
super
Yeah.
introvert as well. So my understanding about this creator economy is that I believe 90% of the creators are introverts. It's because like we want to express something, but it's really hard to be going out on to people and be like talking all the time to preach their ideas. But creating, sitting back and crafting something and then putting it on the internet, that's exactly how we enjoy the way we function and the way we
Mhm.
enjoy. So it's really a way out for introverts to influence the world. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's like what a special time we live in, to have technology that we can actually express ourselves, not just maybe through the internet, which is a really cool, almost like world reality that we can just build stuff in.
totally. And we're
Yeah.
so far away right now. I think a couple thousands
Yeah.
miles away, but we're connecting and we're chatting. And you're asking me all these deep questions that allow me to reflect about my life. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and then speaking of deep questions, I'm curious to hear, like your journey as becoming a father because, I mean, for
Mm.
me, I'm a very long way away, but maybe not too far away, but I want to hear like your experience, being a father and how that kind of shifted your values in life.
Um, I guess in terms of my core values and principles, nothing has changed much. Um, I don't know. I don't know why, but I guess if I have to pick one, then it would be I'm more what was the selfless. Selfless, yeah, that's the word, selfless. Because as you grow up, it's always you, so you do everything for yourself, right? You prioritize yourself in your schedule and stuff. But now, no, I have to take a step back.
Mm.
My two daughters would go first, and I have to work around them. So I like this model as well. I know there are some parents who are like, nope, I'm still myself. I still need to do all these things like work, travel. The kids is just, you know, happening at the same time, but I wouldn't work around their schedule. I get that as well. Everyone has different take, but for us, we want to work as a family, right? So compromises, not so I'm the center of the family. So that is definitely a big thing. And that probably influenced how I hang out with people in business world as well. So like I'm always thinking about their perspective and what they need instead of what I need. But that also goes back to my upbringing. I told you earlier that my dad passed away when I was really young. So my mom um, she would well she didn't receive higher education, so
Oh.
there wasn't a lot of like parenting or like teaching when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah.
So these
Yeah.
days kids would read a lot of books and study phonics and math. Back then we were always just like doing something random things. But the thing is she was so she gives everything to me. So maybe the word spoiled. um, So a lot of my value as a new parent are actually coming from studying how my parents took care of us when we were young and be like, oh, I don't want to do this. For example, my dad passed away when I was 10. So that's why I'm spending so much time with my daughters because I know life is short.
Right.
And if you prioritize business, your kids will have no memory of you, right? That's what's happened. And then my mom spoiled me out of love, which I appreciate a lot, amazing. But I would want to treat my daughters differently and in a way that I'm not just gonna give her everything.
Yeah.
She has to earn it, right? If you want this new toy, you have to do something to get it. I want that in her because that's gonna make her stronger. So I think, yeah, maybe values change as a parent, but it also connects back to your childhood.
Yeah, I love, your philosophy on that. I think going back on what you said earlier, it's like sometimes we live lives thinking that we're like the center of the universe, but once we be like a spouse, and then once we have that child, it's like okay, suddenly like it's not just you. It's like you have other people to take care of, and now it's like yeah, becoming more selfless, I guess, in nature. So I think that's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah, but I have to stress that
Yeah.
starting a new business when you have a very young family
Mm,
is very hard. So,
yeah.
anyone listening to this, I want to remind them to, be either very experienced in what you do, you're like so good, so you have no problem getting clients or sales, or you keep yourself, leave yourself a really healthy runway so that you have a long way to go because it's very hard to start a new business, especially in this like creator economy thing, doing
Yeah.
things mostly on the internet. I just want to put a kind reminder
Yeah,
out
yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, imagine like, it can be pretty challenging to balance between the two. And I guess like on a related note, it's like what does like your day-to-day look like, balancing your business side of things as well as the family side of things? Like how does that look like on a day-to-day basis?
So you need a support system. So
Mm.
one thing pretty good living in Hong Kong with Asian grandparents
That's so true. Yeah.
is that they're willing to help out.
Mm.
And and my sister, everyone helps out my mom. So when you have a support system, then you can figure out like, okay, there are some times that you can really be alone and do deep work. But oftentimes it's just really hard. Like I told you, I have a hard cutoff today because today is a public holiday here, Mid Autumn Festival. So we're actually, taking the girls to have lunch with some friends. So I have to go back home and pick them up. So yesterday, I planned to work a little bit, but then the girls are, just having some free time, and I want to hang out with them because if you don't hang out with them, you cannot bond with them. It's all in the hanging out. So I was like, okay, I'll take them to swim. And then I lost like an hour and a half of my time again. So it's like losing a ton of time here and there. But you have to like carve out your deep work time. So that's kind of my day to day, sending kids to school, picking up them up, and then playing with them, and then just working with my wife to like agree on a schedule.
Yeah. And also, appreciating you, making the time during the holiday. I remember it's also Mid-Autumn Festival that we're celebrating as well. So just grateful for making the
Yeah,
time.
I mean, yeah, man of words. Like I agree to do this. I'm not gonna just change it because I wanna, be a bit more chill at home. Yeah.
Yeah, let's finish up with, some life advice questions, so to speak. Um,
Mm.
one of them is what's something that you didn't pay attention early on that you had to learn the hard way?
Growing up,
Sure.
things look very much like a certain way, like very linear. For example, if you want to get an internship, you would go on some bank website, some
Yeah.
accounting firm website, and then you apply for it, and then just sit here and wait. If you want to apply to a university or a master program, you do the same. I think, as I said, I was pretty clueless, so I thought that's the only way. But now, as a 34 years old, I realize opportunities come from all angles, as in, if you can figure out a way to get to know like people in that space. For example, you know someone who interned at that bank many, many years ago or 2 years ago,
Mhm.
talking to them would put you a lot closer to getting that outcome. So yeah, don't feel like you have to fit into that default path, default way of doing things, but just be creative and figure things out. Like if you want to get on someone's podcast and be a speaker, right? How do you do it? You don't apply on a form. You go around and be like,
Yeah.
hey, Paul Miller, I really enjoy your book. And then 6 months later, maybe he will notice you, something like that.
Yeah.
So, big lesson, really.
Yeah. It's cool because I hear stories of college students graduating, and for their entire life they've been following what to do, and then once they graduate college, it's like, oh my god, like the whole world's out there. It's like, what do I do? There's no like quote unquote set path for me to take. And I think it's important to recognize that opportunities can come from anywhere, and you just have to position yourself to find it, not for like structure set already to position it to find you. So yeah, I think that's a really good advice there.
Yeah, I think you and I, we're both big fans of Pathless Path. I saw the book notes on your website.
Yeah.
I think walking on that path really forces you to be creative in figuring things out. And growing up, I think I didn't get a lot of opportunities to practice problem solving. It's like everything is quite planned out for me. This is the way you do it. Just study and take the exams, right? So, so yeah. Again, if okay, if I have to groom my two daughters, right, problem solving would be the number one thing. So I would create so many experiences where they have to figure out what to do next. I think that can help them a lot.
I love that. Yeah, I get another question could be, what's a piece of advice you think that's overrated and a piece of advice that you think it's underrated?
Oh, okay. Overrated would be top of my mind. You know, consistency is key,
Okay.
um, because it's important to. This few words is weird in a way that it has a lot of context in it. Consistency is key because you want to be able to keep doing something and last. But it doesn't really mean that you have to do it every day or you have to do it every year. For example, I actually took it very easy on my business for the last few months. Um, it's not, I don't know whether that is burnout. It's just that something we didn't talk about in this episode is that I started with building in public. But earlier this year, I felt that urge to expand beyond building in public because I felt like it was too narrow.
Gotcha.
I think I can talk about so much more. And then once I started to rebrand from public lab to small school, I kind of lost myself. Like I was the building public guy, so clear, but then
Yeah.
who am I now? What am I standing for? So I took a few months like really easy, but then last week or 2 weeks ago, I got all my energy back. Like your interview is at the right time because I'm so recharged. I'm
Let's
so
go.
ready to go. So consistency is key. What does that mean? Like I can still take a break from what I'm doing, and then I can still come back. I'm still being consistent. So I definitely think that is overrated in some way, but probably because there is a lot of misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Underrated. Underrated. So on the internet, a lot of gurus would tell you that don't do things for free. Don't give out all your values for free because if you give it out, no one would buy it from you. Makes sense. Makes sense. But I think it depends which stage you're on. If you're super early, my entire growth was built upon giving everything out for free. Free
Yeah. Yeah.
projects, free help, free advice, blah, 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 blah. But and then of course at a certain point you have to change your model and you
Right.
have to optimize for conversion and sales because you have to run this business. Then you need to like build some boundaries around yourself. Then you cannot give everything out. So I personally experienced that transition. It's totally hard. You're so used to creating things for free and everyone's like, Kevon is amazing, and then now you're like reducing that is a very
Yeah.
hard transition, but it's much needed. So I think uh, that is underrated.
Yeah, and then you go back on your piece of overrated advice. If you're consistent with putting out free work, you do that continuously. But you at some point you have to make that pivot to do something else consistently, right? I feel like sometimes when we be really consistent at something, we kind of lock ourselves in a box, and then that kind of puts us rigid to any change, which can be pretty detrimental if we want to, continue iterating to different levels of the game. So that's a
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
really good point.
totally. And also
Yeah.
consistency has to come with being strategic as well. So
Yeah.
for example, in the last like a year or so, I was focusing on YouTube, and then I was very consistent. I put out like one video a week, but the thing is, to be honest, I wasn't very strategic about like how to grow on YouTube. What's the function in my business?
Mhm.
So it becomes a drag. Like I spend so much time creating free videos for what? For what return? I had no idea. So recently, because of the little summer break, I decided, hey, let's take a break from the YouTube and let's figure out what I really want to do about it. So being strategic is key to go with consistency.
Yeah, so true. Let's finish off with two more questions. So I think
Mm,
this one is a pretty creative one. If you had
okay.
unlimited money, what would you invest it in?
um, I want to say something like stocks or Bitcoin and that, but it seems pretty. I feel like the question is much bigger than it sounds. One thing that I really want to do, which is also driving my new mission after I expand beyond building in public, is
Yeah.
that I I told you I was a nobody back then. Nothing shows up when you search Kevon Cheung other than a LinkedIn profile or a resume, right?
Hmm.
But I believe like everyone has something to share, even if you're working in a company, even if you are anyone, even a housewife, like you have something to share.
Yeah.
The creator economy allows people to do that. So, but a lot of people still don't have the resources to do it. So if I have unlimited resources, I would love to help just people to create a little something like a advanced, not like an advanced asset. Okay, let me repeat.
Yeah.
So if I have unlimited resources, I would love to help everyone to create an asset that can kind of represent them. So you know how people say a book is like a new business card. If you have
Yeah.
a book, you can go around and give it out and people have a glimpse into what you do.
Yeah.
I would love to do that, but the thing is, a book is very hard to write. It's crazy. Like the process will will
Yeah.
haunt
Imagine.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But maybe we can help people create like a mini digital asset to share something that they deeply care about. So the next time they go out, hey, I'm a housewife. This is something that represent me. You can check it out if you want to know about me. I would love that everyone has that opportunity to show off what they know. Yeah, if I have unlimited money.
Yeah. It's like the beauty of the creator economy is that, we can take whatever interesting, very niche passion that we have, and maybe even like 1,000, 2,000 people might be able to see it. And that's it's really cool to see that, there's so many people around the world that we can connect to who also have the same, niche passions or obsessions that you might do. So I think that's a really cool thing. Yeah. And then,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so then the final question is, I usually end it with every podcast episode, which is, if you had one piece of advice for your 18-year-old self, what would that one piece of advice be?
I think I sort of covered that, like
Yeah,
study less and create more. Um,
or maybe like
but I
another.
guess
Yeah.
I guess I could dig deeper into that. Like, I spent 4 years in college. I mean, let's not talk about high school. Yeah, 18 years old is college, right?
Yeah.
I would I would set a very different goals for each year, like freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year. different goals. Like maybe the first year is about meeting people from 40 countries, and then second year is about creating a project to showcase something that I really love. And then the junior year would be, hey, take a part-time role at a front desk type of position, at the gym or at the library, because you have access to people. I was very shy and I didn't interact with a lot of people. So doing something like that would open the world up for me. So like one challenge, one goal a year would be pretty
Ooh,
amazing. Yeah.
I love that. As a rising sophomore, I'm actually moving in like in a few days at the time of this recording. So I think that'd be a really cool challenge. Set one goal for each year and just see where that leads.
Yeah, and then for bonus, build it in public, right? Share it with the world as you challenge yourself to do that. You never know what can happen to you. Maybe you're caught on Tim Ferriss' eye, and then you will share what you're doing. So yeah,
No, awesome, man. Yeah, awesome to have you on the pod. I just can't wait to, keep following your journey and where, what you do will come next. So thanks again for being on the podcast.
yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Justin. You're doing something great. So keep going. Keep meeting a lot of amazing people, and you get to where you want to go.
Awesome.